Hey everyone, Lord Necrosome here, and welcome to the dark side. Oh, hold on. Welcome to the dark side. Today I'm going to be talking about my personal opinion on Sword and Shield, a review, if you will. I did not like it very much. I guess I'll list off the things I like first. I like most of the new Pokemon. If not all of them. A lot of them were really cool, a lot of them had interesting ideas, a lot of them had interesting backstories, and some of them are just straight up cool. I also do like some of the Gigantamax forms for for older Pokemon and new Pokemon. I do think that it is a good thing that they are giving even more Pokemon love that hadn't received love before, like they did with Mega Evolution. I do like the new starters. Like a lot of people don't really. I honestly do. Sobble and the Inteleon line is. I honestly really like that. I honestly really like them. Because I'm gonna be frank with you. I really like Inteleon because he looks like Randall from Monsters Inc. and I grew up with that movie and I watched it all the time when I was a little kid. It was a big part of my childhood, so it may be a little biased, but yeah, I really liked Inteleon, even if his move, he has a pretty limited move set, but still, that doesn't hold any Pokemon back from being good. Hold on a second, I need to plug in this freaking laptop. But yeah, there was a lot of Pokemon in it that I really liked. Freaking computer is acting up, sorry. But yeah, I really liked a lot of the Pokemon. I already said that a few times, but I'm not saying this is a completely horrible game, is what I'm saying. This is what I'm trying to point across. I like the new mechanic of. I like them reintroducing the box being able to bring in all of your Pokemon wherever you are, except during gym battles. I do think that is helpful because, well, some of the areas in the Pokemon in Sword and Shield are pretty big, and it can be easy to get lost in there with Pokemon you would rather not have at the time due to type matchups or whatever, just because you don't want that Pokemon there right then. It is handy to have the box so you can go to them to do a max raid battle or just to bring them out or get your false swiper or Q-charm or whatever you want them for. It is a lot more helpful than having to go all the way back to the Pokemon Center, then go all the way back into the wild or wherever you're going to do whatever you're going to do. And it does make it easier for a gym battle to only be stuck with the 6 Pokemon. You can swap in and out of. You can have your party be swapping while you're in the gym, because that would be even more ridiculous than it already is. But I'll get to that. I do like a lot of the new animations. A lot of the new animations for old moves and some of the animations for newer moves are also pretty decent, as well as the new legendaries. I'll get to them. I'll get to the problem I have with the legendaries, or one of them specifically, in a bit. But I really like Zacian and Zamazenta. I like the concept of them holding their old weapon and then in battle turning into their true form, I guess you could say. I don't remember what the form is called, but that's what I'll go with. I do like that it has like a similar concept to Giratina, where it holds the Gyrosis orb. I don't remember how to pronounce that, but you hand Giratina an orb that changes its appearance and even, I think, some of its stats I don't quite remember. It does change its ability to levitate, I believe. But that's aside from the point. I do like that they introduced the concept with the legendaries, and I also think it's very clever that the 3 legendaries have signature moves that are strong against Gigantamax Pokemon. That is pretty helpful in max raid battles because a lot of Gigantamax Pokemon are overpowered. But I'll get to that in another minute or so, whenever I start talking about max raid battles. Well, what's bad about them, because I'm about to say I really like max raid battles. I like the concept of finding these stronger Pokemon, and it's kind of funny. It's like in any game where you fight the bad guy who is impossible to beat, but then the moment he's on your team, he's fucking useless. It's hilarious. And it's not that Pokemon and it's kind of because, for the entire time you're battling them, they stay Gigantamax, whereas opposed to you and your Pokemon, even after mastering Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing, you are only stuck with 3 turns until your Pokemon turns back to normal, as opposed to the max raid wild Pokemon that are large until you catch them or they run away or whatever. I really liked Sonya. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, you could call me a weirdo, weeb, whatever. I really liked Sonya. She needed work to be a better character. A lot of them did, but I'm not getting to that. I'm getting to the positives right now. And I really liked Marnie as well. I think it would have been better I think the game would have been better if that was your rival. Like, that was your main rival and not Hop, if I'm gonna be honest. And I love the new shiny effects. I love that they have 2 different shiny effects for Sword and Shield. There's a regular shiny effect where it's regular stars, and then there's an even rarer occasion where the shiny effect will have little squares popping out instead of stars, which is very rare and really cool. And I think that's about it. No, I also really like PokeCamp. Some people don't, but I really like the concept of making curry for your Pokemon, because camping out together and hanging out and cooking together is a good way to bond with people, at least in theory, it's supposed to. I guess that's it, and I'll start going to the things I don't like. A lot of the animations are more or less the same, and some of them are so lazy. Everyone knows about double kick, which if my memory serves me correct, in Ultra Sun and Moon or Sun and Moon, when you use double kick, the Pokemon actually did an animation. Granted, it didn't do a kick animation. Like, if I remember, it was back when I had Litten, and it used double kick, and it did the little clawing animation. It didn't kick really, or punch, or it was the scratch animation, and it did the double kick thing, but it still did an animation as opposed to just the model. That it's just lazy. And there's a lot of lazy things. Like, this game is unbelievably unpolished. Well, I guess believably, considering how long it took them to make it. But there's a lot of things in it that need to be polished, or it's lazily done. I'm pretty sure most of you have seen the moment where Zamazenta or Zacian, whichever game you have, the legendary Pokemon, when it's turning to walk away, it's doing the walking forward animation and the model is rotating left. And in a game that's on the Switch that costs $60 in 2019, that does not look good on any game. I mean, it's pretty lazy. It's kind of lazy when it's pretty lazy when they do that on the 3DS games, because yes, it's a 3DS, but it's fucking Nintendo, man. You get what I'm saying? Good. If you don't, oh well. Some minds can't be changed. Then there's a lot of other problems involving models. All the trees look blank. All the trees look like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people said this too, that the trees look like they're from N64 games. At least the ones you can't interact with. But and since we're talking about trees, let's talk about the berry trees. I do not like that concept whatsoever. You have no control over what berries you can get, so you're completely hopeless. In other games, you were able to get, if you got a single berry, well, in other games except for Black and White, and I think Black and White 2, you were able to actually, have a farm with, you were able to cultivate more berries if you ever got any rare berries. And I guess we're going to start talking about comparisons between Ultra Sun and Moon, or Sun and Moon, and Sword and Shield. One of the things I loved in Sun and Moon was Poképalego and Pokemon Refresh, which kind of mixed together, because Pokemon Palego had Poke Beans, where you fed where you could go to Pokemon Refresh and feed them the beans that you caught. And in Poképalego, it was kind of it's like in the anime where Ash has all of his old Pokemon somewhere else instead of just being trapped inside of balls. And that sounded wrong. But I honestly kind of liked it like that. Like, it was an area where the Pokemon would be doing things, or just being able to relax on a calming island where you got to get more berries, so you would be better prepared for battles and such. You could get treasures so that it was easier to buy, so that it was easier to make money. There was a hot spring for your Pokemon to relax in. There was a training area where you could change it was either the EVs or the IVs of your Pokemon, which is very helpful, and I used quite often until I figured out how to install PKSM, and then I just hack all my Pokemon to have good stats. But tell me you wouldn't if you had PKSM. Maybe I'll do a video on showing you how to use it. I'm not going to be making a video on how to install it, because it's a long process, and I'm not going to have the patience or anything to go through all of that again. Plus, I already have it, so there's no need for me to, and I don't have any other systems to use it on. I've used it on my 3DS XL, so there's that. But I'm getting sidetracked. So yeah, they removed Poképalego, which I think kind of sucks, because with the box, it kind of does emphasize that you're always keeping all of your Pokemon in their Pokeballs, which is something else I want to talk about now. Where hold on a sec. Speaking of Pokeballs and Pokemon, I hate that they didn't bring back the free roaming Pokemon thing, back in Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu. Not the best games, definitely not, especially on the Switch with the Pokeball Plus. That thing needs more buttons. But I loved that you could have your Pokemon out in the wild with you, where you would have, whether it was your starter, whether it was just a little Pidgey that you just caught and you liked because you love Pidgey for whatever reason, or if it was a shiny Mewtwo just hovering behind you, or a Golem rolling behind you, or riding Gyarados while you're in the water, or riding a shiny Rapidash with its purple flames going everywhere while it's running at such a fast speed as compared to just walking, or riding a black Charizard or a green Dragonite. You get what I'm saying, right? Everyone loved that. Well, most people love that. And I don't see why they couldn't have brought it back in Sword and Shield. They already had the concept somewhat they had been keeping it in the franchise. And I believe it was a thing in some of the earlier games. I haven't played them all. It was a thing in Let's Go, which a lot of people, if not everyone, loved. And then they don't bring it back, even though they still have, like in Let's Go, overworld Pokemon. I don't get that. I don't think anyone gets that. Just why wouldn't they do that? I mean, it would have been I think it would have helped people get more attached to their Pokemon, because as far as I know, a lot of people didn't really get too attached to the new Pokemon that they had, unless it's a Pokemon that they really liked, or it's a Pokemon that they transferred using Pokemon Bank and Pokemon Home. But I'm not going to get to that until later. And now that we're on more Pokemon, let's talk about the Pokemon in the overworld. The water Pokemon don't cause ripples in the water. You don't get to ride any of your water Pokemon. Yeah, that's another problem with the not having your own Pokemon be out in the wild with you anymore. You can't ride them. Back in frickin' X and Y and back in X and Y and I think Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, you were able to, if you had your Lapras using Surf, you could have rode your Lapras, and I think that's a really cool concept. And then when they had the ride Pokemon in Sun and Moon, you got to ride a Lapras, you got to ride a Tauros, and all those Pokemon. And I don't get why you couldn't have been riding. I can get the bike thing. I can get having a bike that can be on the land or the water or whatever. But they could have made the game a little more interesting if, like I said, they brought back Pokemon being out in the wild with you. They don't have to bring all of them out, just one. So that, like I said, you could be riding a Galarian Ponyta through the beautiful wilds. You could be on the back of your beautiful pink Lapras that can become a Gigantamaxed beast. It could be your shiny Gyarados or whatever you were gonna ride, whatever you would ride. I do like that. I guess this is one more thing I do like. I do like that they gave one of the new Pokemon the spotlight for the best mode of transportation, the flying taxi that's carried by a Crovenite. Crovenite is one of my new favorite steel types or flying types. One of my new favorite Pokemon. And I do think that it is really cool that they had Crovenite carrying a flying taxi. And they mentioned, and I think somewhere in one of the decks they mentioned that Braviary is so prideful and such a bastard that he doesn't let that it was too out of control for people to use. I think that's a funny thing. So I will give credit where credit is due to the new changes. But then there's also Pokemon in the wild that just pop in and out of existence right in front of you. And I know that it can be hard to render it can be hard for any game to run so many things at once. But like when the distance in the game is about like 20 feet and a Steelix or an Onix just shrinks to nothing or pops out of nowhere, or just random not even in the grass or the water, just pop out of the ground and all of that. I just think that's so lazy, and they could have done something a bit better than that. I can get coming out of the grass, and I do like that they bring back Pokemon rustling through the grass, and at the same time having overworld Pokemon. I do like that change, but the overworld Pokemon, when they do spawn in, it just looks pretty lazy. And I guess Wingull would be the best Pokemon to explain the laziness of the people who made Sword and Shield, because its animation whenever it's out is it's basically the T-pose. It's T-posing on everyone while it's just floating there. You spent $60 to see this in the overworld, all over the place. They couldn't have it flapping its wings constantly. And that's something I don't like from the games either, that a lot of Pokemon are just completely immobile or whatever. I do not like that one bit. And Wingull still having the same animation it's had since X and Y. Yeah, I don't like that at all. And now that I'm talking about Pokemon walking in the wild, it makes me more upset about why we couldn't have at least one Pokemon out there with us. They already had the animations for them swimming, them flying, and walking, and running, because, they chase you. It's like some chase you. I don't get why they couldn't have brought that back. Especially if most of the fan base, or just a lot of people in the fan base, do want it. I do think it would have been a good idea to add, or it would have been something great to bring back. And I guess I'll have to talk about the elephants in the room, the giant elephants. All of the mega forms were completely removed. Pokemon that used to be brought back into the meta thanks to thanks to the Mega Stones, are now not so special anymore. And there's no chance of them bringing them back because they already gave so many Pokemon. They already gave some Pokemon, like goddamn Charizard, Gigantamax forms. So there's nothing we can really do about that. But then there's one thing that bothered me after a month or so of playing the game that really got me pissed off, which is, why couldn't they have made Mega Evolution Pokemon the Gigantamax form of those Pokemon? How amazing would it have been to see, to have your regular Mewtwo, like, okay, let's use Mewtwo as an example. Let's say you loved Mega Mewtwo Y. And okay, no, not Mewtwo. Lucario. Let's use Lucario for example. You love Mega Lucario. You want to use Mega Lucario in Sword and Shield, and Nintendo thinks, okay, let's do that. Then whenever you have your Lucario out, she has a Gigantamax form, and I do think they could have given Lucario some kind of Z move, or not Z move, sorry, a Gigantamax move. I do think they could have given all of these Pokemon their Mega forms as their Gigantamax forms and given them some kind of move, or even add them in later. But with Charizard having three forms is not going to happen in a game. 2 is already ridiculous. I think Nintendo realized 3 was too much, and I guess I'll have to start talking about the problem I have with some of the new moves as well, or Gigantamax Pokemon, I guess. A lot of people were pretty pissed off that Charizard got a 3rd form, and I'm not surprised. But what could have saved Charizard is if it had it wouldn't have saved Charizard, but what could have helped Charizard look a bit better is if its G-Max move was a bit better. G-Max Wildfire, it does a little bit of damage for 4 or 5 turns to non-fire types. And that's even worse than Gigantamax Centiskorch's move, which causes a fire vortex, which causes fire spin. So it does about the same amount of damage, but the Pokemon also cannot escape. So I would have thought, well, why not make Charizard's the one that's fire spin, and Centiskorch's burn, or even vice versa, or done something else, like. Maybe you could have even changed Charizard's ability to flash fire, or something along those lines. I think it could have been an interesting thing to give some of the Pokemon better G-Max moves. Like I said, Centiskorch or Charizard could have had a move that causes burns. Gigantamax Kingler, it just harshly lowers speed. And as much as I like to lower speed because a decent amount of my Pokemon are pretty slow, I don't like that. It's kind of just a slightly better version and water version of Max Strike, which is Also, I don't like Gigantamax Eevee's signatures G-Max move, G-Max Cuddle. I don't like that one either because I think other people pointed out if the team has the same gender as your Eevee or has no gender Pokemon, then it's kind of just a strong move, as opposed to if it's regular Eevee. And I honestly think it's a shame because I really like Gigantamax Eevee, and you could say the same thing for Gigantamax Pikachu, but that can go in either direction. Either you increase the power of electric type moves, or you paralyze all your enemies. This is good, but this is also good if you get the picture. And then there's in Pokemon trainer battles, the trainers are always popping in and out, even more so than they used to, even more so than they did in Let's Go and Ultra Sun and Moon. There's also extreme lack of other legendaries or Pokemon with a story significance or any of that, because here's the Gen 8 legendaries and mythical. Melmetal's the mythical, and then Zamazenta, Zacian, and I'm forgetting its name, Eternatus. Only 4. We've in every generation there's been at least 5. Hell, back in Generation 1, there was the 3 legendary birds. Well, I guess they're adding more now with the Isle of Armor and all of that. But the original game that cost $60 has only 4 legendaries, one of which you have to evolve in a spin-off game that takes forever to do. Oh, sorry, the camera's getting even darker. But there's still a lack of other really strong Pokemon or mythical and legendary Pokemon. And one of the most controversial generations, Generation 5, had at least 9 legendary Pokemon and I think 2 or 3 mythicals. That's still a lot. And Generation 7 and Generation 6 had a similar problem. X and Y, it only had Yveltal, Xerneas, and Zygarde. But then, at the very least, in the later generation, in Generation 7, they actually made one of them even more interesting by making Zygarde, which is one of my favorite legendaries, be able to make a Zygarde that is stronger and able to. They added more to them, is what I'm saying. And Generation 7, whether or not you like the Ultra Beasts and all that, it had a lot more legendaries. And I guess since we're on legendaries and such, which are usually post-game content, I guess I'll talk about that. There's no post-game content. You get to go and fight against a bunch of Dynamax Pokemon on your own, like a one-on-one max raid battle, but you don't even get to keep the Pokemon. And then the reason for you even needing to do anything is because of two losers that think they're the shit because they're related to royalty. So I guess that's that. And ever since I finished the game, I've just kind of been doing max raid battles and hoping to get a shiny, and probably not. And yeah, there's no post-game content aside from the battle tower, which is pretty easy to do, especially because there's no regular battles and then super battles like in Ultra Moon and Ultra Sun, where you could do battles with legendaries and mythicals and ones without. If you're still able to bring in legendaries, it does still make things pretty one-sided, and I do think that is unbalanced, which is one of the things which is going to be another topic in a minute. But back to, no, I guess I'll talk about that. The national decks. They are intended to cut out half of all Pokemon because of balance changes, but then they introduce ridiculously overpowered Pokemon, and I can't really remember all of them off the top of my head, but all I can remember is Dracovish with Strongjaw and Vicious Rend. Everyone knows that was one of that. I don't think it's as much of a problem anymore. I don't think people use Dracovish anymore, but that kind of unbalanced, overpowered like Pokemon or moves it kind of diminishes the concept of taking out Pokemon in order to keep the meta fair and even. And then there's the reason that they cut out Pokemon and moves was to erase everything from scratch, and start from scratch and make everything beautiful. And people found that most, if not, no, all of the models had either a few changes and the new textures added, or no changes. Which, honestly, that's just wrong. Because they just straight up lied to us about why they're removing a lot of Pokemon that people work hard. A lot of people, think about it this way. Let's say your favorite is Lucario, and you've had a shiny Lucario ever since ever since you got Pokemon Diamond, and you've carried it with you all that time. It's been maxed out with amazing stats or mediocre stats, whatever you want. It's been there with you ever since you got it, and now, despite you being able to bring it with you no matter what, for some reason, you just cannot bring it. You cannot bring a Pokemon that you worked hard to get and then, or cherished and loved, and bring it over to the next generation. Now, some people may say that, I'm being a bit whiny and all of that, but I honestly do think it does hurt a game to not allow people to do something that they've been able to do pretty well because they just wanted to get the game out sooner. And I do think it is a good idea that they are adding more Pokemon into when the next DLC is released. Like, even if you don't buy the DLC, you can still transfer your old Pokemon or get the Pokemon from other people if you just want to get a new one in that game, so that you can name it whatever you want and all of that. But they still tried to, and they tried to sweep the wool under the rug. And then when we finally called them out, they said nothing until they eventually told us, okay, we're going to add more. And I do think that is a good thing. However, I still don't agree. I still have a grievance with them because they lied to us and shelled out this thing that was half-assed and all of that. I mean, when I first played the game, I was excited. I wanted to ignore the Dexit drama. I didn't want to believe that they were lying, that people were telling the truth when they said they lied and just copy-pasted or just made new models that were the same and wasted time. I didn't want to believe any of that. At first, I liked the game. Like I said, I started liking the Pokemon and all of that. But then as the game progressed, more of the things that I had problems with started showing up, and I started asking myself, what about this? What about that? Why is that there? Are you kidding me about this? And I didn't like it. And I still got things I haven't talked about. Let's see. Shiny hunting Pokemon is completely broken because there's still a bug in it that prevents you from being able to increase your shiny rate by just battling and by just taking out and catching Pokemon of a certain species. And even so, I think someone did the math that even if you were to get your chances of finding a shiny to the max with with one species, it would take 500 encounters from that species, as opposed to reach the same amount of effect as the Mandela method, not the Mandela method, the Masuda method, which is using a foreign Pokemon in order to breed. And I do think that is a big problem, especially when SOS chaining in the previous game was, in my opinion, a very interesting and honestly amazing idea and concept that I think they pulled off pretty well. It increased the odds of them having better stats as well as being shiny. And if you got the wrong gender, then that was your problem. You should have had that cute charm Lopunny in the first party. But I'm getting sidetracked again. I'm sorry this video was so long. I just wanted to list the things I liked and didn't like about Sword and Shield, and I think there's a few things I still missed. Most of the characters are boring or in your face, and you can't really progress with the story without going through the same thing about, oh, there was a great evil that was stopped by a hero, and now we're discovering more about the hero, about the hero or heroes. And I do think that is a serious problem that a lot of people apparently have been complaining about the stories for a long time. I honestly really like the stories in Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon of Lucamine, the sexy insane bitch. But this one was just it just kind of felt the same thing as, or at least when it came to figuring out Dynamaxing, like when they were all talking about Dynamaxing, it felt beat for beat like they were talking about Z rings and Z crystals and the Mega Evolution, both of which were just completely swept under the rug, and is honestly just is honestly just a letdown. They introduced some interesting things into the canon, and then when the next game comes along, they just sweep it under the rug. Like, oh, this amazing thing that they said they need to start researching on is completely swept under the rug or barely mentioned even during the main game, and never brought up in the next game. Granted, in Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon, at a certain point you encounter characters from the previous game, X and Y, and are given a Megastone, and you can actually buy Megastones and transfer Megastones from X and Y and Omega Ruby and buy new ones in order to have Mega Pokemon. But here, like I said, they completely got rid of it, even though they could have made Mega Pokemon the Gigantamax forms of most, if not all, the Pokemon. They could have done it based off of whether or not people wanted to or not, but they didn't take our best interests into. They didn't care. They honestly didn't care. And then I guess I should talk about the thing that pissed me off the most, or one of the things that pissed me off the most, was in the end credits of Sun and Moon. I was baffled by this. It was, I think, halfway through when for like about a second or a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds, you can see a mouse cursor over over the Pokemon. You can actually see a mouse cursor in this game that was released in 2019 by Pokemon, by Game Freak, which is essentially Nintendo, which is one of, if not the biggest companies in the world. That is fucking insane. And all of the people who bought this game, we paid for it. I pre-ordered it. I pre-ordered it before I knew about all the controversy. I pre-ordered like $5, but I felt like I had to because I already spent $5, and then I spent $50, and then I spent $60 more because of fucking taxes on that thing. And then I was excited, and then at the end I was like, "What the fuck was that?" I mean, the game is just. It's just go here, go there, and I guess I'm sorry. I'm just having a hard time getting my thoughts together after that little rant. I guess I'll list off the last few things that bother me. On the EXP candy, it's not a bad concept, but it makes the game even easier. I mean, people were complaining about the difficulty, and I honestly think that they should have, at the very least, given us a chance to change the difficulty. They do in a lot of games. They do. I mean, they've never done it in Pokemon, and I think adding a easy, medium, hard, or Pokemon, or like a Pokemon Master as the highest difficulty, I think that would have been interesting. It would be better if they were to make it more interesting, or make it more difficult, because I was overleveled all the way through the game, as I have been with most of the other games. But even so, back when I played Sun and Moon, the Totem Dragon Pokemon really fucked me over the first time with my full party of pretty high level Pokemon. I got wrecked. But even so, that still shows the gap with the difficulty. It's either too difficult, or it is you get done like that. And the experience candies and the way the experience share still works is frustrating. If they divided up the experience that a single Pokemon can give to one Pokemon, that would have been better. In fact, if they made how much the experience candy gives smaller, or just not added it at all, I think people would have been okay with the difficulty. And I guess there's just a few other things of nitpicks, like the characters, and in some areas the battleground is just it's before the Big Bang or whatever, and and the battle tower can either be in your favor or you just get swept away because BS, and a few other things. Oh yeah, whenever you're trying to do a max raid battle with someone else, you can't really do the max raid battle or a max raid battle online with other people, because there's almost never a max raid battle that actually works. Half the time it says there was an error or this party's filled up, but it'll still show them for that party for 10 fucking minutes. And when you try to filter it out to only max raid battle, it just shows ones that have finished or ones that, or when someone has approached it and then just not entered it. So then there's no max raid battles at all. And then when you try to start your own, invite people to your own, there's not 4 people in the world that want to fight this one There's not 4 people in the world that want to fight this Pokemon. Not 4 people in the world, when despite all of its flaws, being an extremely profitable game, it's frustrating. And then the game still lags whenever I'm connected to the internet. I don't have the best internet, but my Switch is pretty close to where the Wi-Fi the router is, so it shouldn't be lagging so horribly when I've been connected for like 5 or 10 minutes. I guess that's about it. So I guess if you want me to rate this game, the Lord Necrozome rating for Pokemon Sword and Shield without the DLC, because I don't know if I'm gonna buy it or not, would be a solid 5.5 out of 10. It introduced new things that I loved, but it also, it had a lot of good things, but I believe that they were heavily outweighed by the negative things in that game. Especially because this is Pokemon we're talking about. They've done better, and they can do better. And there's a lot of people that are probably going to say that I should be grateful and all of that. But I'm going to be honest. A lot of people know this isn't the first time a game company has tried to pull off such bullshit before. One of the biggest most well-known examples aside from Sword and Shield would be Fallout 76. Everyone remembers the bullshit that was going on with that game, and no one defended it. But for some reason, people are willing to defend an even bigger game company from doing about the same, if not worse, things. Oh man, I didn't even mention the Pokemon Home, which is complete bullshit, because they could have just had Pokemon Bank work for the Switch. They're Nintendo, they could have done it, and they probably wouldn't have gotten as much smack as they did if they didn't do all of that. But even ignoring the Dexa drama and having to pay for another subscription, it's not a good game. It's honestly, it still kind of is. There's a lot of positives, a lot of negatives, and I honestly believe the negatives outweigh the positives too much. I wish I didn't pay $65 for this game, because we should expect better from a game company like that. So, thank you for watching this video. I'm sorry it turned out so long. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know if you want me to do more reviews of games, or even play the games, or even if you want me to play Sword and Shield. Then, I'll see what you people want. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, everyone. And stay dark.